Good morning, everybody, to all of us who are here and to anybody who is watching us online. This is the First Unitarian Church of Alton, Illinois, and it is a welcoming religious community spiritually led by the Reverend Krista Taves. I am Kohenet Dr. Claudia Hall. My pronouns are she or they, and I serve here in several roles as the RE writer, as parent advocate at Cardinal Glennon, and as Missouri's first Kohenet or Jewish priestess. We welcome everyone here today to this home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope. So much. An important ritual in our Unitarian Universalist faith is the lighting of our chalice. There are many different interpretations of this flaming chalice. Today, I would like to propose that it represents the light of joy. We ask that if you are watching elsewhere and you have a candle or a chalice to light, you can light it now with us as we all join together in our unison prayer of affirmation. We hallow this time together by lighting the lamp of our heritage. Will you join me as you are willing in a spirit of prayer and meditation? Spirit of life and joy, we gather here today heavy with the burdens of our world. There are fires and floods and earthquakes, war and violence and hatred so abounding. The government of this country and others are oppressing so many who just want to live their lives and be themselves. Most of us are just trying to make it through the day without collapse. Today, may we remember that we deserve joy, that laughter can be medicine, that fun and life lived in joyous wonder are acts of resistance in themselves. And most of all, remind those of us who may be feeling down that we deserve to experience the good of life, joys and hopes and dreams and parties. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you to remain seated and join in our hymn in the gray hymnal projected on the wall, number 346, Come Sing a Song With Me. It is a tradition here at the First Unitarian Church of Alton that we place each of our services within the larger sources and principles that we as Unitarian Universalists hold dear. While we are a religion with no requirement of belief or creed, we do have things that we support overall. And the service today comes from the absolute core of our theological tradition, that of overwhelming and abundant love and joy. The early Universalists were faced with a Christianity where most people believed, and certainly in the US, there was this huge wave of people who believed in what's called double predestination. That means that before you were even born, God had decided whether you're going to heaven or you were going to hell. And nothing you could do would be good enough to change God's mind. This horrific theology left so many people anxious and afraid. How do you know if you're going to the right place? What can you do? Is there any way to overcome this terrible event that might be happening to you? And people were left thinking that they could never be good enough to deserve love or grace. Our Universalist forebears turned this on its head, and they said that no, God is good and God's love is enough for everyone at all times, everywhere, that no one is turned away. They declared that everyone was already saved, that everyone was already welcome, that everyone was already loved. While we might not share their theology of God or salvation in the way that they did over 100 years ago, we still definitely share their theology of love, proclaiming loudly and widely, and again in the face of a lot of churches that want to tell people otherwise. We are here as Unitarian Universalists telling people that they belong, that they are loved, that they are good enough, that they deserve hope, and most of all, that we all deserve joy. It is in that spirit that I invite you to watch. We have a reading of our book. It's called Joy by Corinne Avers.
Joy, written by Corinne Avers, illustrated by Isabel Pola. Joy. Fern loved Nana. She loved her butterfly cakes, her mantelpiece mice, and her cat, Snowball. Most of all, she loved her smile. But recently, Nana had stopped baking cakes, the mice were dusty, and Snowball was more like a ball of fuzz. Worst of all, Nana hardly ever smiled. "What's wrong with Nana?" Fern asked her mother. "I don't know," Mom replied. "It's like the joy has gone out of her life." "What's joy?" asked Fern. "Joy is what makes your heart happy and your eyes twinkle. Like when we all dance after dinner, or when I get the giggles with Ernie, or when I go whooshing down a slide. Yes, a great big whoosh," said Mom. Nana deserved some whoosh, thought Fern. And if the joy had gone out of Nana's life, then she would bring it back. But where would Fern find it, and how would she carry it to Nana? She searched the house for a catching kit. A can, a paper bag, a saucepan, a box with no lid, a lid with no box, a fishing net, and a pointy stick all went into Fern's catching kit. That afternoon, Fern and her mother set off to the park. For there would be plenty of joy there. No one would mind if she borrowed some for Nana. A puppy bounded toward Fern, its floppy ears flying up and down. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Fern giggled. She felt the whoosh of joy. She tried to catch the bounce, but the bounce wouldn't go in the box. On the swing, a baby chuckled each time her daddy tickled her feet. Tickle, tickle, chuckle, chuckle. Fern chuckled too. She felt the whoosh of joy. She tried to catch the chuckles. Then she tried to catch the tickles. But neither the chuckles nor the tickles would go in the can. When Fern reached the duck pond, a shimmer of sun rippled across the water. Fern smiled. She felt the whoosh of joy. Nana would love this, she thought. She tried to catch the sparkles, first with her fishing net, then with her paper bag, finally with a scoop from her saucepan. But the sparkles just disappeared. Finding joy was easy, but catching it was hard. Fern walked home with heavy feet. She loved Nana and wanted to bring joy back into her life, but her catching bag was empty. Nana was snoozing in her chair. Fern laid her head on her arm. "What's the matter?" asked Nana. "I wanted to catch some joy for you, but couldn't," said Fern sadly. Fern told Nana about all the things she had seen. To Fern's surprise, Nana smiled. It was the biggest, widest whoosh of a smile Fern had ever seen. "You don't need a can or a box or a net to bring me joy," Nana said. "You bring me all the joy in the world just by being you." The next day, Fern took Nana to the park. Whoosh! Together they found joy in the most unusual places. And this time Fern's catching bag was full to the brim with Nana's delicious butterfly cakes. The end.
Will you join me in singing our children out to Children's Science Day? As part of our weekly worship service, we take time for the expression of joys, concerns, and sorrows. This is one more way that we are rebuilding our beloved community, not simply to what it was before, but to carry what we are and who we are forward into the future. If you would like to recognize a joy, sorrow, or milestone, you can come forward, go down that way, across, and back up here, and place a stone or several stones into the water to represent your joys and sorrows. There are stones here at the front for you, and if any of you who are watching have a stone, you can lift it up and hold it in your heart as everyone comes forward. We invite you to come together in prayer and meditation. I invite you to join us in our next hymn, it's number 349 in the gray hymnal on the wall, We Gather Together. Well, good morning, everyone. I am really glad to be here today. My son has had RSV all week and almost wound up in the hospital, so it's a joy, a real joy, to be here instead of there today. This was a really fun sermon for me to write. I feel like with everything that's going on, especially on the Missouri side of the border lately, it's been kind of doom and gloom up here in the pulpit. So I'm really, really happy to be able to come and talk about one of my favorite holidays, and even more than that, the reason why I think it's such an awesome holiday. For many of you, you may have heard this, or if you haven't, it's a very common joke about Jewish holidays that every Jewish holiday goes like this: they tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat. This is truly Jewish humor at its finest, and I think you humor in a lot of ways too. We tell the truth in a sarcastic and subversive way to really spin what's going on, to take that crushing weight that's been put on us by the world and to find a way to laugh in spite of everything. And obviously, this isn't to say that being Jewish or any other persecuted minority is fun and games or a ticket to the easy life. I can tell you that these people who think Jews control everything, I got left out of that invitation, apparently. But there is something in the culture of oppressed minorities that looks for ways to laugh despite everything. One of the recent persecutions is of drag performers, and every show I've been to, every group that I've worked with, there is that subversive joy that these people take so much from us and we're going to be happy despite everything. And I really resonate with that because it's a trait I grew up with as someone very poor and very marginalized. It's a way to use humor as a tool to resist oppression. And right now, it's the wave of anti-trans and anti-LGBT policies that are going on, which are just so ridiculous that you look at this and you say, why are you being so hateful to little kids? Like, what is broken in these law people, in these policymakers, these bill makers? What is broken inside them that they think hurting children is a good thing? I cannot comprehend this. And as someone who has worked with and been myself a youth in great mental distress over their gender identity, this is, it's not saving kids, it's hurting them. And this idea that you can do that and that it's okay makes no sense in my mind. But even if it's not that, then there's the book banning, right? The religious discrimination, the class and the wage discrimination, the fact that people who need food stamps in Missouri are on hold for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, can't get through, can't get the stuff that they are entitled to and that they need. For the love of heaven, can we just feed people? Like, why is this so hard? I go on and on and on, right? The food deserts. Like, we can just keep going and keep going. There is always something. We call it salt in the wound or grit in the shell that keeps us from being comfortable, even when things in our own life might be more or less okay. Grit, like I was in an interfaith meeting not too long ago, and someone said, what binds us all together here is a shared belief in the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. The microaggressions, like a computer scientist mansplaining a religious point to me, like I haven't spent 25 years doing this professionally. That may be grit, right? And then there's salt. Salt, like elevators that are half an inch off. So when I'm in my wheelchair, I can't get in or out of the darn elevator without flipping. It's just ridiculous. If grit makes pearls, most of us should have a bucket full by now. And when life is full of this, it's really easy to just get ground down. We're not making pretty things. We're not getting polished. We're just worn thin. And so I think that this is where humor can offer us a way to let off some of this pressure in a healthy way before we blow up. And being focused on finding joy, no matter how rotten the circumstances. Sometimes it's like twisted. It's people going, oh, well, you've got to be happy no matter how awful your life is. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when we can find a way to be ourselves authentically and to have joy in those moments, they might be here and there, but when we can find joy in the face of people oppressing us, then we can maintain our humanity no matter how much people are trying to denigrate us. It is easy to be negative. It really is. We see it all over the place. I don't need to bring it up. If any of you have Facebook, you know the world is full of negative people. Enough said. But it is almost as easy, and I see this often in like you or other progressive circles, where people are so positive and they're so determined to be positive, it's like they have blinders on. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be great. Everything is wonderful. And it's like, okay, now you've stopped acknowledging the reality of the situation. So there's got to be a balance here between pessimism and Pollyanna-esque optimism. And the thing is that psychology teaches, and I think one of the most wonderful people who talked about this, are the ones that survived the Holocaust and went into psychology. And they said, we cannot always control our circumstances. Obviously, no person chose to go to a concentration camp or to be put in a death camp like Auschwitz. But when we can find meaning for ourselves, and that's a totally individualized thing, I can't tell you what your meaning in a tough situation is, right? I can't tell you where you're going to be able to find some kind of joy or some kind of peace about these things. You have to look and find it yourself. And when you do, there was a bunch of people at Auschwitz, they knew they were going to die. They were being starved to death, they were being tortured, they were being beaten. And yet some of them still maintained their humanity, sharing with others, caring for those who were ill, doing good things for other people. Why? It's a terrible place, it's terrible things. But they were able to find within themselves something that enabled them to keep their humanity even when they were being terribly, horrifically abused. Doesn't mean the abuse is right. It's not. It never is. But there are times we don't get a choice. I do not get a choice other than my ballot box, which, let me tell you, I've already ballot boxed as much as I'm allowed to, right? I don't get a choice in what these horrible people in Jeff City are doing. I wish I did. I wish there was some way for me to personally change their hearts and minds. If I could wave a magic wand, I would. But since I can't, I have to look at it and go, okay, if these horrible things are being done to people I love, how do I help them? How do I help myself? How do I care? How do I extend my humanity in this time? The Jewish people knew this, and they knew the value of humor, no matter what the circumstances. So this week, tomorrow, starts the holiday of Purim, and it's based on the book of Esther, and it's essentially, a lot of people compare it to Carnival. It's different, but it has a lot of the same themes. We don't know when the book of Esther was written. It was set during a time in which the Jewish people had lost their country and their temple and their history. And it's this fictional story. It's really a Cinderella kind of story, right? There's this Jewish girl who winds up hiding her identity. She winds up being forced into a beauty pageant and forced to become the king's concubine. And then there's this even worse twist in that her uncle gets on the wrong side of a king's evil advisor. And because of that, the king's evil advisor goes to the king and says, you should kill all the Jews because they were mean to me. And the king goes, okay. And then they prepare to slaughter everybody. And it's not until Esther makes the brave decision to come out and to say, but I am a Jew, you will kill me too, that the king realizes maybe committing genocide isn't such a great idea after all. And then, the tables turn and the bad guy gets what he's due and blah, blah, blah. But the point is that we tend to sanitize it a lot in Judaism because we don't like the ending. Because the ending is, and then all the Jews go out and kill all the people that oppress them, right? So even in the humor, they went too far the other way. The oppressed became the oppressors in the story. And so nowadays, people typically cut it off right about the point where Esther, the queen, stands up and is a brave person and comes out into the world. Obviously, a lot of queer Jews find this to be an incredible story of resilience in the face of the things that are against them. And it's really been sanitized. It's really been turned into a party holiday. So kids have costumes, there's parades, there's gifts, you go to different booths, you just really have a great time. And every time, when you read the book of Esther in synagogue, every time the bad guy's name is mentioned, people boo and shake noisemakers. The idea is that you're blotting out his name, right? That he will never have a history because we're going to refuse to acknowledge him. I will say that, traditionally back in the day, there was an idea that you had to drink until you couldn't remember his name. We don't do that in my gatherings. We have several folks in recovery or that can't drink for medical reasons. And frankly, it's just a bad idea these days. But just because there's no booze doesn't mean it's not a party. It's 100% about being silly and zany and wild and just letting go of sort of our usual social pressures to fit in, to pass for someone else. And it's a really important holiday, historically speaking, because it was one of the few times that the Jewish people were allowed to be joyful. You know, they were shoved into a tiny little nook in the city that was called a ghetto. That's where that term comes from. And they were usually forced to wear something that was different about their clothes. Hitler's Yellow Star was not the first time that had happened to the Jews. For centuries in different places, they could only live on this side of the river. They could only wear this kind of clothing. And so Purim was one of the few times where you could shed all of that in your community and just be who you are and be wild and be crazy. If you take like pride parades today, have a lot of that Purim vibe. It's a group of people being themselves despite what the world thinks about them and just enjoying the over-the-topness of it. Purim, maybe than any other holiday in the Jewish calendar, is about celebrating survival. It's about taking joy in the fact that we made it. We made it through another year. We got through another time. And we're going to be a little wild about that. We're going to have some fun with this. I think that as UUs, we need to celebrate and to enjoy our lives. We spend so much of our time being the minority. We spend so much of our time, especially those on the Missouri side, we are the minority politically and professionally and personally and ethically and belief-wise. It's so weird when I talk to people and they're like, so what does your church believe? And I'm like, well, we don't have a requirement of well, how can you do that? And it's just because it's completely alien to the way a lot of other religions are run. And I think that maybe Purim needs to remind us of that. It needs to remind us that even when we are the minority, even when we're a persecuted minority, we deserve more than survival. We deserve more than survival. Equality is a baseline. It is not the end goal. We deserve joy. We deserve laughter and cheers. Those of us who have worked for so long and so hard, it is easy to burn out, to say, nothing's going to change. I'm done. I've done my part. I can't lift this anymore. But when we tend to the inner life of our emotions, when we give ourselves times and places to be happy, to be joyful, to celebrate the good things in our lives, it allows us to be restored so that we can go and do the work again. Now, some of us are extroverts and want to go out and have the big party. Some people, a wonderful, joyful occasion is curling up on the couch with a new book that I've been waiting to read for 4 months and having that day to do it. So however it looks for you, it does not have to be carnival. It can be something chill. But you need to take the time to do that. When I was serving in different ministry locations, I see it often. The people in the church have worked so hard to keep their doors open, to keep the bank in the black, to do the things that have to be done. And then all of a sudden it's over. They burn out. They quit. They leave. They do terrible things that they shouldn't do. They just do destructive things because they've burned so low that there's no fuel left to keep them going. Purim reminds us that by celebrating, you are resistant. By saying, no, I deserve joy. I deserve happiness. That this is not something I get once everything's done. That I deserve it right here and now. Each and every one of you, no matter what your financial station, no matter what your family is going through, no matter what is happening in your world, you deserve joy. By taking our kids to Drag Queen Story Hour, by buying banned books, by wearing our green hair in public, we're resisting a world that tells us we have to conform and that only the privileged few should be allowed to go on vacation and have fun. Modern workplaces, man, they want you to be plugged in 24/7, right? Like the boss should be able to get you day, night, weekends, vacation. No, you deserve joy. It is not quiet quitting to tell someone, these are the hours I work. And this is what I'm compensated for. Beyond that, I'm not doing it. Just because they want us to overwork and burn out does not mean that we deserve to be burned out. A lot of times, modern religion is so focused on hating other people in the name of God that we can get worn down with the fact that, our faith teaches us the exact opposite. We are the home of odd ducks, weirdos, the folks that march to the beat of their own drummer, the wild children, the leftover hippies, and all the folks in between. We question the answers and we answer the things that weren't questioned. We do everything we can to uplift that other people would ban, or that which other people would say shouldn't exist. There's a saying in the pagan community that I love that says, "We are the children of the witches you couldn't burn." UUs are the children of a theology that was and is grounded in a world that is good, that is fun, that is here for enjoyment and to be celebrated. This world is not a bad place in UU theology. There's people that are doing some things that aren't real great that we've got to work on, but the actual existence, being a human being on this earth, is not terrible. It's not a punishment from some God above. It's a wonderful opportunity to live and be and exist and enjoy. One thing I love about being a UU and Jewish, especially in the humanist Jewish community, is that we are the kids who always ask why, right? Why can't we dance? Why can't we laugh? Why can't we play cards? Why can't girls do that? Why does somebody have to look a certain way? We are the kids who decided that coffee and cookies was a better way to worship than dry and boring services. We joke that coffee hour is our sacrament in the UU church, but it really is true, because when we are having fun together, we are doing sacred work. The idea that love is the center of our theology, without joy as part of that love, we will burn out and we will collapse. When we have fun, we are doing sacred things. Laughter is holy for our faith. Joy, that whoosh within, as the book said, is a critically important theological goal. In the Talmud, the Jewish canon of rabbinical teaching, about 1,800 years or so old, there's a wonderful saying that you'll hear often in Jewish communities. It says, when you are discussing the work of repairing the world, the rabbis say this: "You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it." Like the rabbis, I will say to you today that none of us will complete the work of building the beloved community in our lifetime. And we don't have to stop trying. Purim is not all about protests and calling your legislatures. It is parties and marriages and celebrating the family that we choose for ourselves, with holidays that matter to us and our people. It is about being in this world in ways where we find delight. My husband, who will be 50 years old in just a couple of months, and our little guy, he goes out to the parking lot. Some of you may know where this is going, right? He's pushing our son in the cart, and they get a good running start, and then he hops up on the cart, and they go whoosh all the way down to the bottom of the parking lot. And every time I see that, people will look at him and shake their heads or act. I said, you know what? It's joy. It's fun. It's something absolutely, purely for the pleasure of it. And I think as UUs, we need more of that in our world. We need more of that in our hearts, in our lives. Some of us may have that with family or friends or loved ones. If we don't have that, then it is your holy theological duty to find it. Because you deserve joy. You deserve hope. You deserve love. That is what our faith teaches, and that is what makes it important. So eat your cookies. There's a bunch of them out there for just a minute from now. Drink your coffee or tea. Laugh and laugh and laugh, because the sound of laughter is sacred, mystical medicine. Like the Jewish people drowning out evil with their noisy celebration of Purim, may we too drown out the hateful voices so that all we can hear is our laughter, our love, and our hope. Amen. and blessed be. Our final hymn today is number 311 in the Great Hymnal, Let It Be a Dance. Good times to follow back through the good times and the bad times. Let your body learn to dance, and like a little dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. A child is born that old and strong. A time of joy, a time to live. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance with you. Let us dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times. Let it be a dance. What the dark days will hold, if nothing's wrong in our lives. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Let the sunshine light the way, then let the way the rain, then round and round we go again. Let it be a dance. Thank you. Do we have a volunteer for our basket? Thank you. As the offering basket is passed around this morning, I offer you all the gentle reminder that our community of faith is supported only by your giving. This is coffee money as well as keeping the lights on. Stewardship is more than our donations of finances. It is also about time and talent. We ask that you donate as you can because all are needed for this church to prosper. On the wall or on the screen are all of the different ways that you can give your gift. Give what you will and what you are able, for you are a generous people. Will you join with me in our offering prayer? May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. Do we have any announcements this morning? I didn't get any, so I'm trying to double check if anybody has one. Okay, so work is still continuing in the basement. At the moment, there's no tiles down there, so just so you know. Okay? Anybody else? All right. Then I invite you to join with me in our extinguishing our chalice. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. May we love, live, and laugh so loud and long that our peals of noisy joy drown out the voices of all who hate us just because of who we are. May we know joy, be filled with joy, and then spill that joy out into our world until all hate is washed away by laughter and happiness. Our joy is a peek at the promised land. Our happiness, what will help bring about beloved community. Go forth not just in peace today, but in joy, this day and always. Amen, and blessed be. Thank you, Joy. Now we get to go have our coffee. Best part of the day.